Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Today is apparently update day. I'm updating another video. This one I did more recently, though. And a lot of people were fascinated by this story where a guy in Tennessee who's a U.S. citizen who'd been here for quite some time in a variety of different states, gave him driver's licenses, recently had been told by the state of Tennessee that, no, you can't have a driver's license because you are not a U.S. citizen. And, of course, that was wrong. He is a U.S. citizen, but he's having a hard time with the bureaucracy. And so I did that story just a couple weeks ago, and I got a flurry of messages this morning saying, Steve, there's been an update. The man got his driver's license. Well, sort of. He didn't get what he's looking for, though. He wanted a real ID compliant driver's license, which apparently they still won't give him, but they did get him a driver's license. So it resolves part of the problem, but of course there's something deeper going on here that's a real problem to begin with. So veteran who lost driver's license because Tennessee said he wasn't a citizen gets welcome news from the state. Jennifer Krause wrote the story for WTVF. She's been all over this story. She's the one who brought it to us originally. And just a couple weeks ago, she brought us a story. The man's a Navy veteran who went to renew his driver's license in Tennessee, and he thought, well, while I'm here, I'll get the real ID version. And he's told he couldn't do that because, of course, you're not a U.S. citizen. Now, the paperwork shows that he is, in fact, a U.S. citizen. You recall that he's 77 years old, but he was actually born in Canada, but his parents are both U.S. citizens. That shouldn't be a problem. But for some odd reason, there's a lot of confusion because of the fact that apparently he came to America when he's quite young. I'm guessing 76 years ago. And nowadays, they make sure that you do this paperwork properly, but back then, probably not. So he said when he's being interviewed by a TV station, no, when asked, do you have a driver's license? And he said, well, did you have one? And he said, yeah, I did. So as they reported on the TV station, the state of Tennessee took away his driver's license because state employees said he was not a U.S. citizen. So at that point, of course, the TV station went and approached the Tennessee's Commissioner of Safety and Homeland Security. And he says he reached out to us because he just wants somebody to help him. Are you pledging you'll do that? The reporter asked the commissioner, and his reply was, absolutely. So that was a couple weeks ago. They contacted him again, the man who was at the center of the story, and asked, do you have your driver's license yet? And he said, no, he has not gotten his driver's license. So then they asked him, well, what have you heard from the state since we ran your story? To which he replied, nothing. So the man was forced to file a lawsuit, and he's suing, in essence, the state for not giving him a driver's license, which he clearly qualifies for. And he has an attorney who says this situation is ridiculous. He's filed a federal lawsuit and said what this man has done is just serve his country because he is a veteran. The suit states that the man should not be deprived of the privileges of citizenship based on the arbitrary and incorrect basis that he is not a citizen because, of course, he is. The man's attorney says the bottom line is it's not up to the DMV to determine whether the man is a citizen. He's got a Social Security card. He's voted in every state and federal election. He's been driving for 61 years. He's gotten licenses from Vermont, New York, New Hampshire, and most recently Tennessee. Tennessee even gave him one. So it does appear that part of the problem was getting the real ID versus getting a regular driver's license. But apparently they said he couldn't have either one of those. So he did say that it's been pretty frustrating, and he's now been without a driver's license for 6 weeks. He says you can't do anything by yourself. You have to have somebody take you wherever you want to go. I'm pretty much stuck. And right now, he said his wife and he are stuck in Vermont because they went up to visit family, and to get back to Tennessee, they would need a ride. We are here until I get a license because I can't get on a plane to go back, or I can't drive because, of course, to get on a plane, you need to show ID. So this has been pretty tough of an ordeal, and he said that he's getting all kinds of support from people who heard about the story. He said he had to go to a funeral of a recent dear friend who passed. Everybody there, people we hadn't seen for years, heard about it and were outraged. And that's his wife speaking. So they say that they hate that it's come to filing a lawsuit. And again, I hear this all the time. People come into my office, or I speak to them, they say, what can we do? And I say, well, we got to file a lawsuit. And I've had so many people say, I don't ever want to sue anybody. I never wanted to sue. Of course not. You shouldn't want to have to sue somebody because usually you'd rather just get what you're entitled to. but once in a while you have to. So the attorney said this easily could have been avoided had the Tennessee Department of Safety, at the very least, fixed its mistake once it was pointed out. Couldn't they have done that? So the TV station says they're about to air this story when they suddenly got an update. Minutes before the story was to go on the air, they got word that the state had reversed course and issued the man a driver's license. Now, it's not Real ID compliant, but it is a driver's license. So at least he's got one of those. And apparently that was delivered to the man's attorney's office as they were closing for the day. So the TV station then spoke to the O'Connors, who are the couple at the center of the story, the husband and wife, and they are thrilled at the news that they got a driver's license. They're still moving forward with the lawsuit, though, because they still need that Real ID. And that's what he wanted to get in the first place. So meanwhile, it's important to understand that you've got the state of Tennessee and you've got the federal government, two different entities, okay? And it's the state that issues the Real ID. But they do that following the guidelines issued by the feds. And so the Department of Safety and Homeland Security has issued a statement. And they said, we have diligently reviewed Mr. O'Connor's documentation and determined that he presented acceptable proof of U.S. citizenship to obtain a Tennessee driver license, and a Tennessee driver's license has been issued. Now, not all Tennessee driver licenses are Real IDs, which is what Mr. O'Connor initially applied for. A Real ID is a federally compliant license, and a combination of federal and state laws govern acceptable proof of citizenship to obtain a Real ID. The documents that Mr. O'Connor has provided to date do not satisfy the proof required to issue him a Real ID. The department remains committed to working with federal partners to ensure that all U.S. citizens in this state may obtain a Real ID without undue hardship. And so this gets back to, and I had so many people send me notes about this, that if you are born to citizen parents outside of the country, you're a U.S. citizen. But being one and having documentation of being one are two different things. And so you've got a birth certificate that shows you were born in Canada. Well, that's a Canadian document in this guy's case. I have heard from people who were born to American parents in other countries around the world. And some of the countries are quite far away. So you've got a document from another country saying you were born to these two people. Well, that's not an official U.S. document. And so apparently there are laws and mechanisms in place right now to where if you are parents and your partnership results in the birth of a child outside of the U.S., when you come back to the U.S., there's paperwork that you should fill out indicating that, yes, we had a child outside, born outside the U.S., we are parents who are U.S. citizens, and we can prove that. And then, of course, you're speaking on behalf of a baby, so the baby's not going to have a lot to say at this point in its life. And then you can get the paperwork in place that the child, when they grow up, will have, look, we got these documents. I've got these documents that prove I'm a U.S. citizen. And that system is in place now. And I had somebody who sent me a note and said, Steve, I can't believe that they didn't do this when this kid was born. And I said, well, when did that law get passed? And the law was passed many, many years after this guy was born. Because again, remember, he's 77 years old. And apparently he came back to the U.S. at the age of 1 or 2, it sounded like. And so, 77 years is a long time ago. It's a long time ago. And so I don't know what the process was 76 years ago for this, but I suspect it wasn't as laid out clearly as it is now. And I suspect that it may have been just kind of like, oh, you're born outside the U.S., well, when you come back here, we'll recognize that. And nowadays, you know how bureaucracy is. Things don't get less complicated. They get more complicated. So as of right now, the guy has a driver's license. And some entities are willing to admit and concede that he is, in fact, a U.S. citizen, despite the fact that the guy served his country and has had driver's license in all these different states. There's, still some people going, well, but that's not good enough. That's not good enough. And that, like I said, is a problem with the bureaucracy because they should recognize that there are people in this situation. He can't be the only person his age who was born outside the U.S. to parents who are U.S. citizens. And I said before that they need to have a catch-all or something, some other mechanism. And I can understand that the feds will be leery of giving that to the states for fear that the states will just say, oh, you say you are, fine, do it. But the feds should have a way where someone gets stuck and if the state goes, we believe this person is a U.S. citizen, but your rules don't allow us. Can you issue us a waiver or something? And get the feds involved, because there can't be that many of these. It's not going to be millions and millions and millions of people, right? It's going to be a handful. That's why the story's in the news, because it doesn't happen that often. But it's a crazy story. So for a few weeks, the guy had no driver's license. Now he's got a driver's license, but it is a typical run-of-the-mill driver's license. It is not real ID compliant, which is what he wants, and which is what he's entitled to as a U.S. citizen. So thanks to everybody who sent this to me, and thanks to Jennifer Krause for following up on the story at WTVF. The veteran who lost his driver's license because Tennessee said he wasn't a U.S. citizen gets some good news, but the fight will continue. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened.